What's up, guys? It's Too Troubled back here again for another fantasy video. If you haven't seen some of our other fantasy videos, we had done one where we drafted our must-haves in the early rounds. But if you guys know, your fantasy leagues are going to be won in the later rounds. So there we have it. We have the later guys that you must draft to win your leagues. Trav, who do you have on this list?
Well, if you can get a receiver one that arguably can start for his team in the late rounds and pick 8, 10, this is the guy that you must have then, in my opinion. And I'm going to start it off with DJ Chark. You might say, hey, Adam Thielen's there, Jonathan Mingo's there on offense. Maybe Adam Thielen's the receiver one. I don't think so. I think it goes to DJ Chark. He's been a receiver one in an offense already. 2019 in Jacksonville, he clips over 1,000 yards, was a leading receiver for that team. And let's not forget, back in the day with that Jalen Ramsey defense, I get it was the defense. Jacksonville was good, so he was a good receiver one for a good team. Now, if you haven't heard and been listening in preseason, Adam Thielen, has been banged up. In game, he got hit. He kind of exited the game. Maybe, that's going to linger throughout the season. But DJ Chark's 28 years old. I think he's going to be good. He's already been the receiver when he's young. He kind of excels everywhere he goes. He really has played it for Jacksonville. He hasn't really had a star quarterback yet. I think, honestly, Goff could be the best quarterback he's played with throughout his career because he's played for really Jacksonville's whole career. Gardner Minshew, Blake Bortles, guys like that are not really going to eclipse you, but he's playing with Bryce Young now. So, number 1 overall pick. Maybe he's better than Goff. Maybe he's not, but I think he's going to be the receiver one. They're going to throw the ball. Carolina's not good, so they're going to be down, which means they're going to have to throw it even more. I think if he can be the receiver one for this team, I think he has the ability to be a 12 to 15 point per game scorer, which maybe you can see him as a 4th or 5th round talent with the talent he's getting. So that's my number one guy. That's my number one guy this year. What about you?
I like it. You went a very interesting direction with your first guy. For my first one, I have a combination of 2 players here. I got Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney here for my first players on this list. And this might be a little bit more obvious than the player you chose. But as we all know, Kansas City has one of the worst receiving rooms in the whole NFL. And so some of these receivers have to step up and start making some plays. You lost Juju Smith-Schuster this past year. I mean, you could count Kelsey. He's basically a receiver, but he plays the tight end position. So out of these receivers, I think the 2 guys that are primed and ready to have a stud year are Sky Moore, who is just entering his 2nd year. Didn't really get to have too many looks last year because he was a rookie, and there were some other guys there as well. And Kadarius Toney, who is also young. He's coming from the Giants. I think one of those 2 guys is going to take this Kansas City Chiefs offense over. So we'll see. We shall see what happens. I think Kadarius, he has that agility. He can return punts. He does a lot. So I'm very excited to see Patrick Mahomes with that offense and how they can start incorporating some of these receivers who haven't really had a chance to really shine in the NFL yet. But I think those 2 guys are primed and ready to do so.
Yeah, I know Mahomes likes to spread the ball around there, but now he's lost a little bit of more receivers, so that's going to get piled on some more receivers. He threw for 5,000 yards last year. Kelsey can only get so much. Right. He's not going to get 2,000 yards. He's going to be around 1,500, so 3,500 yards have to go elsewhere. And Sky Moore, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Kadarius Toney are really the big 3, and one of those guys is going to emerge as Mahomes' top target. And I think that's a guy you want on your team, especially if you can get him in the double-digit rounds. Yeah. But my next guy, keeping it the same with late round top target on a team. Now, this is interesting because the top target on this team, I feel like, is not a receiver. I feel like it's a tight end, and that's Dalton Schultz. Houston is not going to be good, which means they're going to be throwing the ball a hell of a lot because they're down in games. They can't waste the clock by running the ball if you're down by 14 points. So the target's got to go somewhere. I'm not a big believer in Nico Collins, not a big believer in Tank Dell, not a big believer in Robert Woods. So that means Dalton Schultz, I think, is the best pass catcher on this team. And from a rookie quarterback standpoint, he's the tight end. He's the security blanket along with the running back. So he's going to get some dump downs. They paid Dalton Schultz for a reason. They're going to give him the money. They gave him the money, so I think he's going to perform. And if you can take a top guy from a target, especially at the tight end position, that's huge. Because you look at some of these guys like TJ Hawkinson, he might not even be the top target on his team. He's definitely not. You got Justin Jefferson in the building. But if you don't want to take a shot on a tight end in that middle round or even take a Kelsey, you don't want Kelsey, you don't want Andrews, you don't want Kittle, you don't want TJ Hawkinson, you don't want Darren Waller. waiting to the end, picking up a guy like Dalton Schultz, who plays very well. I mean, you see what he can do in Dallas, and now he's in more of a role where he has more target production just to see how he can perform. I think Dalton Schultz might be a steal, and you can get him towards like really the last 2 picks of your fantasy draft.
Yeah, no, I definitely, you almost convinced me there when you were explaining it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I agree. Houston has no offensive weapons whatsoever. Who's going to emerge as that guy? I think Dalton Schultz has the best opportunity out of everyone you just named, for sure. But following it right along, I also have a tight end here next on my list. I have Darren Waller of the Giants. Now, I know I just heard you write him off a little bit, but every year it goes back to the conversation of how do you compete with Kelce at the tight end position. Now, last year there wasn't an answer. Year before that there wasn't an answer. Kelce's just in a league of his own. But Darren Waller finally has an opportunity on a new team. There's no other receivers there on the Giants. Darren Waller is literally their one and only option. Danny Dimes is finally getting into the swing of things. He finally looks like he's an NFL-ready quarterback and can win you games and throw the ball around confidently. I mean, let's not forget, Darren Waller is only 2 years removed from 2 back-to-back 1,100-yard seasons. So he is capable of having the receptions and the yards and scoring touchdowns. He's a big dude. He's athletic. He can run you. He could burn you down the sideline. He could come across the middle and eat big shots. I mean, to me, Darren Waller could literally finish as the guy, as the tight end right behind Travis Kelce. But that comes at a cost. I know you're not drafting him as late as some of the other guys on this list, but with the upside that Darren Waller has this year, I think the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I am very, very high on Darren Waller this year. I think obviously he's, just like we said with Dalton Schultz, he's the top target for that Giants team. And not 2-3 seasons ago, he was being drafted in the 2nd and 3rd round as a tight end who had Amari Cooper on that offense. I know they ended up trading him to Dallas. Devontae Adams came back. He finally is the guy. It's really Darren Waller or bust. I know they drafted Jalen Hyatt. I know they have Sterling Shepard. I know they have Wan'Dale Robinson. None of those guys, are going to create the target share that Darren Waller is going to create. I'm high on him. I do like Darren Waller as a pick. But my next guy, I feel like we've been riding the hype train on this guy for 2-3 off seasons now. I'm a Packer fan, so maybe I'm a little bit, biased. I think that might give a hint on who this guy's going to be, but it's Romeo Doubs. Last season, he so much hype. He was very good in the preseason 2 years ago. Aaron Rodgers comes in, doesn't have the best season of his career. He kind of gets banged up throughout the year, doesn't, retain some of the hype that he was getting. This offseason, he plays very well in the preseason again. He's kind of a preseason stud. He plays very well. He's had a touchdown. He had a 40-yard catch in the last preseason game. He didn't play in this week 3 preseason game. That's unfortunate, but I really like the hype that Romeo Doubs is sharing. And I get that Christian Watson is going to get hype. He's supposed to be the number 1 receiver here in Green Bay. But as a Green Bay fan, I kind of like Doubs a little bit better than I do like Watson this year. Watson did have 7 touchdowns in 4 games, but if you look at each of those games, under 4 receptions. So it's really like touchdown or bust for Christian Watson. And with Green Bay at the uncertainty of the offense, I don't know if I'm willing to take a touchdown or bust guy with Jordan Love at the quarterback position. So Romeo Doubs is going to be more the reception guy. He's the goal line fade guy. I like Romeo Doubs. I'm going to ride the hype train this offseason, especially since I can get him with literally the last pick in the draft. I do think Romeo Doubs is going to be a guy with huge upside. Now, he may not pan out, but that's fine. Since you're taking him at the last pick in your draft, you're just hoping that you take a hit on a guy. If not, he probably won't be on your roster. Play the waiver wire game. But I do like Romeo Doubs this offseason.
I don't disagree. I think, honestly, I like Romeo Doubs more than I like Christian Watson. Now, I know that's an unpopular opinion, like you were saying, because of the crazy last few weeks that Christian Watson had after his injury. But I think Romeo Doubs is the more like complete NFL style receiver. I mean, you saw him making incredible catches over some DBs last year. Unfortunate that he was injured most of the season, but hopefully he can stay on the field and we can see what a real NFL full NFL season for Romeo Doubs could look like.
100%.
Sticking on that wavelength of receiver, I've got another guy he's definitely more well known than Romeo Doubs. We got Michael Pittman. Now, Michael Pittman this year is falling off. He is dropping down the draft boards. He is being drafted super late. I've seen him go as late as round 9, 10, 11. He's going so late this year. And it's ridiculous to me. I mean, he's literally just coming off a 900-yard season, so it's not like he had a bad year last year with a horrible offense. I mean, they didn't know what the hell they were doing with head coach. They brought in a new guy who has never coached in the NFL, period. Yeah. To lead their team. I mean, it was just a very unfortunate set of circumstances for the Colts last year. Had a super old quarterback. They were busting in all positions, even in the front office with their head coach. I mean, it was just a shit show in Indianapolis last year. So now Michael Pittman can come back into this offense. He's got a rookie quarterback, which might I add, might be the best and the most promising quarterback from this draft. And I think that these guys, if Michael Pittman and Anthony Richardson can create that connection, I think that the sky is the limit also for Michael Pittman. I think he is easily the number one receiver in the offense. Really, I mean, he's going to win you guys some fantasy leagues. He could potentially finish as a top 15, top 10 receiver in my eyes this year. Yeah,
Michael Pittman. It's really Michael Pittman or bust for this Indianapolis receiving core. They really don't have anything else. They lost Paris Campbell to the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I think it really lies in the hands of Anthony Richardson. Last year he was playing with Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger. Both of them, were not great options to get the ball. And as a receiver, you kind of rely on the quarterback position to get you the ball.
Yeah.
But if Anthony Richardson can pan out, I think Michael Pittman's he's going to be good. We've seen him grab 1,000 yards before. It's nothing unlike his nature. And, I feel like last year you were kind of just waiting for that breakout game. And maybe with an upgraded quarterback, you'll have that this year. But honestly, my favorite must-have later in drafts this whole fantasy season is Jaylen Warren. Now, if you don't know who Jaylen Warren is, he is the backup for Najee Harris. An interesting stat that I came across this offseason is the last 6 weeks of the season last year, Jaylen Warren took over third down roles in that Pittsburgh offense. They completely shunned Najee out of the third down role. And you think, first, second, third down, there's only 3 really downs that you play on offense. They took Najee out of one of them. So he technically owns a third of this backfield already, not including that he's the pure passing back guy. I think he had more of a burst. Najee had one of the worst yards per carry last season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm high on Jaylen Warren. He came in 62% of last year's third down snaps compared to Najee, who was below 50. I'm a big fan of Jaylen Warren. I think he has a lot of upside that if, Najee gets hurt, which I'm not going to predict injuries, or he can flat out just take the role over completely. He's already taken down the third down role late last season. He was kind of like a late round undrafted guy. I think that this guy is going to be good. I think Pittsburgh, you saw them in any way they can trying to get Jaylen Warren on the field last year. I think that they have a little bit more invested in Jaylen Warren. Obviously, they have more invested in Najee Harris because they drafted him in the first and second round. But, if Jaylen Warren is the more electric guy, we could see the same issue with Dallas where, Tony Pollard was the more electric guy. They let go of Zeke. They're like, we're going with the guy that gives our offense that boost. Where I think Jaylen Warren may be taking the Tony Pollard role from last year. Not taking over the whole backfield like Tony Pollard has this year. But last year, Tony Pollard, I see that's what's happening with Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, that's a wild guy to have in this list here, but I'm all for it. I like it. I mean, I am also kind of high on Najee, especially with how late he's being drafted this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I could definitely see that tandem in Pittsburgh becoming kind of like what Zeke and Tony Pollard were, like you were saying,
yep.
Or like an Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon type of duo.
100%.
So we'll see what happens with that backfield this NFL season. But next, I've got a rookie on this list from Boston College, receiver Zay Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if OBJ was not signed to the Ravens, I would say Zay Flowers could finish as a top 10 receiver, hands down, no shadow of a doubt. But because Odell Beckham Jr. is there, he's going to take some. I think Odell kind of immediately goes into that receiver one spot. But I think that's not bad for Zay Flowers. He gets to get some reps against some number 2 corners on the team. Maybe he's not getting that number 1 guy look, so he might be able to get open a little bit more. But I think that this receivers are what the Baltimore Ravens need. They have not had a great receiving core in all of Lamar's career so far. So get Lamar some receivers. Let's let Lamar throw the ball downfield more and stop having to use his legs. I think this receiver core that the Ravens have this year is going to take the Ravens to the stratosphere because they've never had it. Lamar finally can now throw the ball downfield to not just one guy that's there. Mm-hmm. It's not just Hollywood Brown running streaks down the field, down the sideline anymore. They can actually run some route combinations and have some guys there. And they got Mark Andrews there as well. So this receiving core is looking scary. I think Zay Flowers is going to have a fantastic year. And Lamar just got paid, might I add. So that adds some even more incentive for the Ravens going forward.
Now, I've loved your list so far. I'm a little questionable on the Zay Flowers pick. So I'll give you my thoughts. So far, I think he's played very well in the preseason, which gets me high. But I mean, as we say, these are late draft guys. I'd rather take Zay Flowers over a guy like around him. I don't even know who's going around him, but maybe like a guy like Elijah Moore. I feel like Zay Flowers, he's a rookie. You don't really know who he's done. He can come in and do a boost. I mean, we've seen rookies in the past, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Not saying that Zay Flowers is on the level of those guys. But, I like taking high upside guys later in the drafts because really if you look at the last 5 rounds of your draft, half those guys are not even going to be on your roster come at the end of the year. You're going to drop. You're going to run through the transition period, run through waiver wires. But this is one guy that I'm interested on. I think it is – people think that it's not a deep receiver room, but really you still have Rashad Bateman there. You have
that is true.
Mark Andrews you can kind of count as a receiver. I never seen Mark Andrews block. Odell's still there, and Lamar's going to run a little bit. But if he ends up being the top guy, Odell has a little bit of injury concerns, then I can see him being one of the better receivers coming out of this draft later in rounds. My next guy, this guy is kind of known, unlike Jaylen Warren, who I had in my previous pick. I think Jaylen Warren is starting to get a little bit of hype, but David Montgomery, this guy came from Chicago, and now he's in Detroit. And I think he's getting a little bit put to the side with the Jahmyr Gibbs hype. And trust me, I am so high on Jahmyr Gibbs. This is not a Jahmyr Gibbs slander because I put David Montgomery in my must drafts. Not at all. But think about it. Detroit last year was the number 1 team in running back fantasy points per game with Swift, with Jamal Williams. What's saying that they're not trying to recreate that again? What's saying David Montgomery is stopping from Jamal Williams had 19 touchdowns playing in that role last year? I like David Montgomery, and I think he's more complete than Jamal Williams is. So I think he's going to be better. Obviously, the passing work for David Montgomery is not going to be there. That's solely Gibbs' role right now. But I don't think that David Montgomery is a bad selection. I do like him coming out of Chicago. I think that the Gibbs hype is kind of pushing him to the side a little bit. He's a little bit of a safer guy. Upside is maybe not as high as some guys like Zay Flowers, as you mentioned, who haven't really seen play. But what's wrong with taking a good flex guy that's safe and then going later in your drafts, then taking your big upside guys? I'm big on David Montgomery. I think that both Gibbs and Montgomery are going to have top 20, top 25 running back seasons, just like Jamal Williams had, just like DeAndre Swift had last year. So I don't know what's stopping David Montgomery for taking that Jamal Williams role, which we saw was very fantasy relevant last season.
Yeah, I don't mind this one either. I think it's always a little scary when you're going to be taking a running back that is coming from a multifaceted backfield. But I don't know. I mean, if Jahmyr Gibbs just takes over that receiving role and David Montgomery can primarily have just the pound the ball role, I don't know. Again, it's kind of like the Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris situation or your Tony Pollard, Zeke situation.
Yep.
I mean, you're seeing teams across the league continue to do this and have your receiving back and have your power back. And you just rotate between the two. Teams know why that back is in the backfield, but can you stop it? No. So we'll see. We'll see how this dual threat backfield works out for the Lions.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that teams are now really keeping 2 running backs on the roster and really like finding a guy like Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley is so rare that has really no
Everything,
holes in
right.
their game. That why not take one of the best passing backs, Jerick McKinnon, Jahmyr Gibbs, and let's take one of the better power backs at the goal line and let's shove them into running back. We use them in both situations, like you said. Can you stop it? They're on the field. You know what they want. It's the same situation. Eagles, 4th and inches. You know
Right.
what they're going to do.
Yeah, but can you stop
But
it?
can you stop it?
No.
Agree, 100% agree. But rounding off the list, Tucker, your last guy, cap us off with a banger.
And that I do. I do have a banger indeed. We haven't touched this position yet on this list, but I got a quarterback. I'm going to throw him in here. Anthony Richardson. I don't think there's any other rookie quarterback from this class that is going to come close to the production that Anthony Richardson is going to have this year. I mean, to me, this might be saying putting Anthony Richardson on a pedestal that he has not yet proven to be on yet. But he looks like a better version of Josh Allen to me.
Wow.
He can run the ball better than Josh Allen can. I mean, Anthony Richardson has the frame of Josh Allen. He's 6'4", 240. He can run. And, I mean, if you guys saw his pro day, that kid was slinging the rock downfield. He looked like he threw the ball further than any other quarterback who were pocket passers in this year's draft.
Yeah. Anthony Richardson is the mold of a star at the at least fantasy-wise for me. It's above my pay grade to say whether he's going to be a beast in real life.
We're not NFL scouts.
But from a fantasy perspective, I'm just going to look at the last 2 or 3 seasons. Last year, quarterback that was drafted late that overperformed, Justin Fields. Why? Younger guy, has the athletic ability.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at 2 years ago. Rookie quarterback, drafted late, ADP shoots up. Now he's one of the top quarterbacks drafted. Who's that? Jalen Hurts. What's about him? His athletic ability.
Yep.
Looking into this season, top quarterback drafted, low ADP, 13th quarterback off the board. What does he have? He has that athletic ability like Jalen Hurts. He's a big runner. He's a big guy. Like, I would say he's more of like a Jalen Hurts mold. Not saying that he's going to run and quarterback sneak as much, but he's a big guy. He has legs. He's more of a power Cam Newton, going to shove his shoulder into you. But I do like Anthony Richardson. So I just like CJ Stroud doesn't have the athletic ability for me to take him. Bryce Young is kind of in the middle of, that he runs a little bit more, but still not the athletic ability that you would like. But yeah, I do like him. But I'm going to leave you off with why not have one more for good luck?
Okay.
A position we have not gathered. Go draft the Patriots defense. They're number 1 every year. I'm just going to put that out there. They're the number 1 defense every year. They're going as like the 8th defense on the board. What are you doing? It's Bill Belichick. He's going to have the number 1 defense. They're going to score the most touchdowns like they do every year. They still have Matt Judon. They just drafted Christian Gonzalez. Go Ducks.
Go Ducks, baby.
But that's it for your must-haves. Throwing you a little one more for good luck. Everyone, I feel like no one gives love to the defense. I had to throw defense in there.
Yeah, that was very kind of you.
Yeah, I feel like next must drafts, I'm throwing a kicker at the end. Jason Myers or Graham Gano, here you come. Because give loves to the kickers as well, As people say, kickers and punters are people too. So.
Hey, man, they're just special teamers. But hey, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you go down and hit the like button. Go subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And comment, do you think this list was warranted? Or did me and Travis completely screw this one up? Let us know down in the comments. And thank you for watching. Trav.
Slap the sub button. And as always, cue that outro, baby.
Peace.